Indic knowledge system to me is dealing with human issues and social issues where human beings are there in a manner beyond what science has become as the mode of inquiry today. Now, this is not against science, but it is about the restrictions posed by a large number of followers of science in terms of asking difficult questions and framing them in a manner that will create genuine solutions for human beings, groups of human beings, nations, and also non-human life forms. So to me, that is the idea of dipping into Indic knowledge.
Okay. Can you just define what is Indic?
Well, Indic is really about what we have, the kind of knowledge that has been handed down to us, which is subtle in nature, which is therefore spiritual in nature, which goes beyond religions. And I think among all the various civilizations, all these civilizations had something very strong going for them, whether it's Egyptian, whether it's Mesopotamian, whether it's in fact European, pre-Greek, the shamanic culture in North America, the culture that came from the Vedas in India, the Far East. All these are indigenous. We call them indigenous knowledge. That's how the West calls it. So this is fundamental, and this actually lasted for a long time. And for some reason, for some great reason, these things got written up in India. So there was a group of people who actually sat down and wrote all these things and made it their profession or their activity, writing and preserving it. So since I am in India, and since I have started understanding the depth of this knowledge, I'm trying to see whether I can understand this better, and if I can understand it better, communicate in a language like English, which is universal today. I mean, global. I wouldn't say universal, global today, and kind of convey this and invite scholars from other cultures to look at this and see whether there is a correspondence between their own inner voices, if I may, and these inner voices that are enshrined in these books, which goes beyond science. So I'm a student of science as well as a student of, if I may call this, just comes to my mind, this word is new, and for me, it's meta science actually.
Dr. Sankaran, Indic has something to do with the language also?
Yes, it has a lot to do with language, because there are some words like dharma that cannot be translated, I think. So now, after 70 years of independence, I'm saying independence, we're always independent in a fundamental sort of way, if we can negotiate our environment. But I think, political freedom that we received, I think first time we are saying we need to understand languages better. So dharma, for instance, is something to do with language. And I believe that while I'd learned a bit of Sanskrit and I have that, orientation of Sanskrit, I'm nowhere near understanding and speaking in Sanskrit and so on. But I think all people in India have a Sanskrit orientation because, all these had their origin in Sanskrit. And very interestingly, some of the most sublime of words in local languages get polluted or vulgarized to mean something negative. It's very interesting, actually. So if we deal with these things and look at the etymology, we'll find the sublime thinking or sublime experience that one can have with language retained in Sanskrit. So it's important to kind of look at what one's experience is, and that experience has to be represented properly through language so that we can communicate. Otherwise, we'll get into trouble. That's a problem that we are facing today.
Okay. Now, we will talk about knowledge system. So what do you mean by knowledge system?
Yeah. See, there are fundamentally, we do two things, right? We think, of course, we speak also, and we do things. So as human beings, when we do certain things, we have gone beyond stimulus response, which animals are well known for. So we have an animal in us which actually has a stimulus and response. Now, the moment we talk about space and time as understanding that human beings have, as I understand this, we will go beyond immediate response. We start thinking about what will happen to me if I act like this. So I'm not greedy, or if I show greediness, I may not get food tomorrow, for instance. So it's not about stimulus response, it's going beyond it. So that beyond, the realm of the beyond, I'm not saying beyond realm, I'm saying the realm of the beyond is really the area of knowledge. So it's knowledge, it's wisdom, it's the ability to remember experiences, the emotional response we have, head response, that's from the heart, head, heart, as well as our hands. Last time I did something like this, but it did not work. All this can be coded into language systems or through representational language of mathematics. So to me, a knowledge system is really dealing at that level where we can tell our children that, hey, you can cry and you get your milk, but if you keep doing that after a certain age, you may not get your milk. You have to stop crying, working towards getting your milk or whatever, nutrition. And that requires patience, that requires cooperation from others. It requires, several at different levels, other human beings, if we understand subtle world, help from subtle world, etc., etc. Now, so to me, the answer to this question, why knowledge?
Now you mentioned about that.
Yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So when you talk about knowledge, I'm saying that realm which is actually thinking through these things, feeling these things, and actually also simulating this through our, mind. Like if you want to be a good driver, probably we can imagine we are driving. All this is in the realm of knowledge. So very quickly, one last sentence. Unless we give importance to this aspect of fundamental difference between an animal and a human being, whatever we talk about, the practical world is ridden with difficulties of, quick responses and, responses in the B.F. Skinner, in the behavioral, in the Pavlovian sense, as they say, immediate thing that will happen. So to create culture, to create connection with nature, we need to have knowledge. So I think everything is decided fundamentally by knowledge. I'm not saying everybody should be in this field, but we should recognize and respect people who are doing knowledge work. We should respect people who are doing gardening work because they're conversing with plants. So I think it's respect, all-round respect for everybody, while at the same time acknowledging that whatever is dysfunctional and you have to stop it at that point. So I think to me that is knowledge actually. It's an underlying foundation for humanity and growth as human beings.
So in other way, we can say that like if somebody is a gardener,
yes,
he also require or she also require the knowledge.
Yes.
So knowledge is something which one has to acquire by reading books, by discussions, by doing some research. So that knowledge is required. Even if he is a mason, he will be a laborer.
That's
even
correct.
If he is a thinker, or if he is a CEO of any company.
That's correct.
So according to you, the knowledge is required. Now, what is the difference then the knowledge and the education which we are having today in our country, or anywhere in the world?
Yeah.
A student goes to the school, then the college, then the higher studies, take the educational degree. So what is the difference between education and the knowledge? After all, he is also educated and he is doing the work, what you are saying. But do you think there is a specific difference between knowledge and education?
Yes, there is a difference. And the difference is that knowledge is something that, the unit for knowledge is the human being. The unit of analysis, so to say. Either I have it or not have it. It could be of anything. It could be through experience. It could be through observing my father, who is a craftsman. Whatever it is, that's knowledge. But the moment we talk about education, we are trying to democratize these abilities. And we are trying to make it, institutional. So to me, education is institutional while knowledge is personal, so to say. And purpose of education is to bring as many people as possible into the realm of higher order thinking, so that they understand their own potential, their own limitations, ability to deal with others in society, and enjoy and have a delight in being with others. And that is ananda, actually, in the Indic thinking. So achieve this ananda, and recognize the humanity in oneself, actually.
Okay. So you mean to say the philosophers,
Yes,
the philosophers are having knowledge,
correct.
while a scholar is having the educational degrees or doing something for the educational things, but not the knowledge which philosopher is having. So there is a difference between a philosopher and a scholar or a educationist or educator.
Yes, I think, I think in Sanskrit, for instance, there are several layers, like you have Acharya, you have Guru, you have several levels of people who do their job. So in society, we have, depending upon our inclination, if I'm able to empathize with students to a greater degree, and if I can actually feign ignorance with children so that, I encourage them rather than show off, for instance, or something like that, I may be a better Acharya than a Guru. Or if I'm able to actually advise people at a higher level and get them to see big things, like Buddha talking to Angulimala and saying, Angulimala is coming and attacking him, and he says, stop. I stop. So he stops. That guy says, Angulimala says. So Buddha says, I stopped long ago. When are you going to stop? Now, the beauty of these things is we can convey these experiences to students in the classroom. And we require people doing this, a highly specialized job. We have to keep our emotions aside and feign ignorance so that the child learns. Ask child, okay, you know that I don't know, please tell me, for instance. So that level is different from a guru or somebody else who's a writer, who's just writing. So what I'm trying to say is there are several levels in knowledge.
So you mean to say the present education system, what we have, where we have graduates, postgraduates, doctorates, those who are teaching, is lacking, because there is no one or very few who are having those knowledges which we termed as philosopher. Like if we go to the ancient time, all the big kingdoms, they used to have the philosophers as their guide. If we will see, although many times they were against the philosophers, we have seen like Plato or Socrates or Aristotle time. But now at the present scenario, we are not finding anyone who is a philosopher, those who can guide the correct thing. So do you think that in Indian education system, we should have at least one philosopher in every institution who can give them the knowledge of all of those which are required for the any stream of the education? Do you think that it is required today to come out with the knowledge thing?
Well, not in an institutional sense, because then again, the philosophy department will get hijacked by science, I guess. That's what's happened. So you have analytical philosophy, and when you read analytical philosophers, it just doesn't excite me as it would some of the Western philosophers, But there are alternative voices also emerging. Feyerabend, for instance, French philosophers, or Deleuze, I'm not sure how the pronunciation is. In France, you will find some philosophers in the 20th century who have questioned philosophy itself. We don't have to agree with them. It's a philosopher's job is to throw questions and make us uncomfortable. And, some people talk of creative tension, creative destruction, for instance, in entrepreneurship, we talk about creative destruction. So creating this, kind of shaking us out of that certainty is the job of a philosopher. So I think basically we need to have an outlook towards questioning existing systems and not say that perpetrating orthodoxy is knowledge or just knowledge transfer, because that's being done to have technicians. And in fact, even professionals, it's good. I mean, we need to have professionals who know exactly what is to be done. If a doctor, when one goes to the doctor, especially with Western medicines which are dealing with dangerous substances also, it has to be, there has to be standard operating procedures. So I'm not against, I'm not saying that, everybody should be be a philosopher. So mind and action, mind is so superior. So some people should become philosophers, some people should become technicians, and there should be a conversation between them. That respect will come if there's a unitive experience of knowledge, there's a unitive experience of action. That unitive experience is missed out by overemphasizing the dissection and division that science propagates. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Can we say that those who are Nobel laureates in the world, in different streams, so whether it's art, peace, philosophy, science, physics, medicines, etc., they can be termed as those who have knowledge, authority, and they can impart their knowledge, and one should listen to them carefully, because that's why they have been giving the something which is not available to everyone. What do you say about that, Dr. Sankaran?
Well, I'm not that bullish about Nobel Prize winners, because a lot of it is institutional. And I, for one, since I am in management, I've been kind of reading people who have won Nobel Prize. For instance, Thaler, who won this, who wrote this famous, popular book called Nudging. Now, these are things which we normally do. So, with due respect to amazing person, fantastic person, I know his students have been extremely benefited. I've read about, once they come into the class, we have to ask, why are they effective? It's because they're questioning existing order of things. But we don't have to have somebody else tell us to actually do that questioning. I think I have, great appreciation for some school masters who did the right things and asked us to do different, things differently. So I don't think we should listen to our inner voice. And Nobel Prize winners can actually help us look at that inner voice. Chandrasekhar, the physicist, talks about, frankly, I didn't read that book entirely, but I used a lot of that idea in, understanding the difference between truth and beauty. It's an amazing book. The first few chapters, is quite philosophical. I really like that book. So we should not, say that, listen to them kind of a thing. Just have a look at it. And if it vibrates with your inner calling, read it. I think that should be our approach towards any kind of knowledge.
Yeah, like you have mentioned about Dr. Chandrasekhar, like Pearl Buck. Now, correct. She is a Nobel laureate. Absolutely. And she won it on the literature. And yes, I read the books of Pearl Buck, and I found the knowledge one can, sitting here, can get of at that time she has written about the China, because she originally from the China, then she migrated to the US. The way she has described each and everything, you feel that you are reaching to that era and you are getting those feelings. Similarly, when we read our own Shastra, whether Ramayana or Mahabharata or Ved Puran, if I will say, I will not term Mahabharata as Shastra or these. We can, if we will have the knowledge to acquire, if we have the quest for that, I think we can get so many things which you are mentioning. So
yes, sir.
So now my question to you is, what is the problem now? What are the problems with the current knowledge system?
Yes, I think what is wrong with the current knowledge system is that we think in a very material way. Now, what I mean by that material is not wanting things, people wanting to have a TV or a computer. We think everything, rules of materialism apply to, deeper human issues. So what I'm trying to say is, for instance, control. If you take control, I think control is a deeply problematic thing in the world today. So through, controls, we are trying to have, civility in people. So we are trying to have a civilization through controls. Now, these controls earlier was very physical. There are lots of freedoms today available, But at the same time, there are some great deal of institutional non-freedoms which people are not even aware of, for instance. So I think freedom is one thing, and define freedom at different levels. For a thought keeper, a freedom is different from a person who is probably a power keeper. So I think about this Indic model of thought keepers, power keepers, harmony or money keepers, equality, efficiency keepers, and perfection keepers. So what I'm trying to say here is, yes, so what's wrong with this? One is this kind of control orientation in the institutional sense, which is very insidious because we don't even know that we are being controlled. So if we get inured, we kind of get, numb through material wealth. That's a problem. I think that's a very big problem. That's why we have this problem of sustainability and so on, non-sustainability today. Another thing is, all of science is about division. So if you take, this thing about cognitive, affective, and cognitive, the entire Western understanding, including in social sciences and to a great extent in humanities also, is about making divisions. So subject-object division. Straight away, we are excluding people who have great experiences, subject-object division. Similarly, on the emotional side, it's about judgment and so on. We make the distinction of good and evil. I mean, it's really problematic. What do we mean by good? So we are actually rejecting a whole section of people whom we think are evil. Number two. Third, in the cognitive area, it's about action versus mind versus action. So these divisions which you have created actually has an impact on our psyche. And I've noticed this myself. I'm saying it from experience, and also there are some process philosophers who have talked about it. So this divisive mind is always seeing somebody else as different from me, because I need to make this distinction. So there's no synthesis-oriented mind. I don't want to say synthetic mind, because that has come to mean something different, artificial. A synthesis-oriented mind is seeing myself and the other person in the same boat. So for instance, there's a very famous, what I think is a very famous writer, Martin Buber, who wrote an entire book on this called I versus Thou. A Jewish philosopher and Jewish mystic, you can say, I and Thou. Thou is not an object; it's a spiritual being. So he kind of says, what is the experience one can have with other people? So these finer thoughts about embracing the world, so to say, and awakening the divinity within us is lost by this divisive kind of thinking. So I find division everywhere, whether it's cognitive, whether it's affective, or whether it's cognitive. I mean, these are three things in psychology they talk about. No? If we get these three things right, I mean, we'll have a very, very safe life. I mean, we can have a happy life, is what I understand from psychology. But that process of getting to that level of delight or ananda is through division. I have a problem with that. As a person who is in the current role, my current disposition is that of a thought keeper. But I have great friends who are power keepers, and if they respect each other, so it's multi-dimensional existence and not one standard thing that everybody tries to achieve, to have a Ferrari or something. That seems to be the current model, which I call materialism, because in the materialistic sense, have more of things, and having becomes more important than being or becoming. I mean, Eric Fromm has talked about it. Western philosophers have talked about these things. But all these things have been coded in a nice manner, as I see, in the Indic wisdom tradition, and everything has got an answer.
Okay. Now my question to you is, you are doing work on Indic knowledge system.
That's correct.
Now, what has been your work, and how you will try to explain to our viewers what is Indic knowledge system and how you have worked on it, and what is your experience about it?
Yeah, actually, I'm new in this area. About a year, I have been thinking about these things. But earlier, I did have some thoughts about this, but I did not think about writing long papers. As an academic, I think my contribution is in writing something that looks at at an issue from different angles, and kind of what should I say, go into the depth of things, which requires long papers, fortunately or unfortunately. And but it should not remain with just people who read these long papers. It has to issue forth in actions, which can be done with students. So I have written 2 papers in the last 1 year, 2 long papers. One was called, actually I wrote this down, the title of the paper is very quickly, Rediscovering Indic Scholarship Using the White Canvas to Embed Western Theories. So what I'm saying is Western theories are not different. It's a subset. It's a special case of Indic thinking. So Charvakya, for instance, is materialism. So we can actually see the Western thing, whatever thinking is happening, management, or in the knowledge of in the area of knowledge management and so on. We can quite see whether that these can be put into certain categories. I'm not always for categories, but then if it's sufficiently flexible at the highest level, categories are good. So whether it's communication theory or whether it is, you have Samvada, Vada, Jalpa, Vidanta. I find that a fantastic way to understand things. So like that, we have Samadhana, Veda, Danda. I used to have, I had a problem with Samadhana, Veda, Danda, but then I realized that it's a meta theory without any, ethical aspects attached to it. In India, we don't moralize actually. What you're saying is, if you do certain wrong things, you'll have to pay the price for it. So it's like the Buddha who said, anger is like carrying a piece of coal in your hand, ready to check it to the next person who's coming by. So what I'm trying to say is these meta models, for instance, is very attractive. I don't know too much about Indic knowledge, but I think there is something that I see in India when I speak to people, which is different from the West, especially when they are willing to look beyond the, materialistic knowledge that is given for the most part in universities. So this is rediscovering Indic scholarship using the white canvas to embed Western theories. I'm saying Indic thinking is so broad, and it's for you to choose where you want to belong, and we can actually put Western theory so that they don't say this is new. For instance, I mean, not that I have no problem with they say it's new, but we should not believe it's new. We have it. And this is what Rajiv Malhotra talks about digestion. I don't fully agree with everything that he says, but he talks about digestion, where finally they don't even give you an acknowledgement for what has been taken from here. And that has happened in many, many fields. Because for them, developing something on their own and creativity is so important. So that is the first paper. Second paper, I'm saying Indic knowledge theory, the muted action social implications. Here I'm saying that we ourselves think that ours is a very philosophical world, but we don't quite realize that there are deep action orientation and deep sociality orientation, how to behave with each other. These are resident in the authentic self, in the philosophy of Indian system. So I'm trying to bring that out and say that we don't have to have a separate theory of action. So it's very parsimonious. Indian thinking is parsimonious, and you take it the way you want it. But a lot have been written about because these are interpretations. But at the end of the day, it's very pithy. It's sutras. It's very fundamental that depending on one's own disposition, you take it the way you want, no matter which religion you belong to. Some people might disagree with me on this, who have understood this probably better than me. But this is my understanding, and I think we need to reinterpret our traditional knowledge in such a manner, without losing sight of what these things originally meant. So we need to learn Sanskrit. Yes, it's very important, but then the mood of Sanskrit is there in Indian languages to a great extent. That needs to be studied.
Dr. Sankaran, you have mentioned about that what India was having the ancient time.
Correct.
If I understood what you are saying.
Yeah.
And many other countries or the Western world has taken but not acknowledged, not giving the acknowledgement.
Yes.
But as you also mentioned that you were the student of science. Science require proofs.
Correct.
Has anyone tried or in our country done something to go do the deep research on those things? Like I will give you a simple example. if we are talking of Ramayana, in Ramayana, so many instances were there, like Pushpak Viman. Now it says that the Ramchandji has come out with that Pushpak Viman came back to Ayodhya. Now today we have we are in the 21st century when we are going to the Mars and other planets on the through the spacecrafts, and now the people have started going there. It's going to be the commercialized very soon. But credit is not going to the Indian Pushpak Viman at all, because there is no proof. How you are thinking that you will be able to connect this disconnect which is existing?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wouldn't say Ramayana is science fiction, but the West acknowledges H.G. Wells. It acknowledges Isaac Asimov. These are people I read when I was younger who are science fiction writers. So if you can imagine something in your mind, it's possible that, it can exist. There is a section of Western thinkers who give credit to H.G. Wells or Isaac Asimov. Frankly speaking, I'm only willing to give, Pushpak Vimana only that level of, credit. Just because my ancestors had an elephant, there's a saying in Malayalam, your ancestor must have had an elephant, but I don't have an elephant now because that is a luxury, and you take care of an animal with, Ayurvedic massages, and you don't send it to do the hard work. I mean, I'm talking about 200 years ago. I have stories like that, kind of family lore. So what I'm saying is, we should not say there is, Ramayana or rather Pushpak Vimana is science. So I can only say that it may have been there. And when you read this in depth, we see the limits of human imagination. So mind is superior to action, to body, not action, sorry. Ultimately, everything has to come in action. But if mind is superior, the mind can conceive of something that is flying. Why are we not acknowledging it as a leap of imagination and something that must have happened, and stop at that? But we should not say that what Wright brothers did in actually making something fly, we should not underestimate it. We should not look at it as anything less than one of the greatest discoveries of recent times. So this either or thing is a problematic thing. I should be able to live with knowledge uncertainties also. That is part of humanity. Why are two leaves different? I always wonder. If you take science, I'll tell my neem tree friend that, hey, this papaya leaf is more effective, or this banana tree leaf is bigger, so you have a bigger leaf. This is what's happening to science. And it's wrong science. It's scientism. It's not even science. So my point is this. Itihas is different from history. So somehow we don't believe in history, because I think Indians don't believe in history because we think it is a science of victors. I mean, somebody else has said this actually. Somebody in the West said this. So Itihas is for me to learn something. So I should go deep into Ramayana and see what is it that I can learn. I mean, whether it is Hanuman's bhakti, or whether it's a determination, or the good conduct of Rama. If I believe in this, I might say somebody else might say Rama was swayed by very ordinary people and suspected Sita. So be it. Let's not have an argument over this. Ultimately, what happens is action. How do I treat other people? Do I do my role properly? If I'm a teacher, do I do my role properly? If I'm a soldier, can I fire properly without fear? So, and we have enough dharmic roles we have to play as human beings. Everybody is required in this. An ant is required to be there. I mean, etymologists talk about this, right? So my point is this. We should not kind of use the Western pedagogy of being right all the time, having to be right, if I may, as our pedagogy. So if somebody talks to me about Itihas, it's helped me. And I don't care whether it happened or not. If human imagination could take a person to Vimana, I must admit the beauty of it. And I believe it was H.G. Wells, I'm not very sure, who actually drew even this rocket. What will be the proportion of the cone? What will be the proportion of the main body? How will be the Even before jet was discovered, I think they could see the fire going back and creating thrust. Everybody knows propeller was this what Wright brothers created, but even before that they could imagine these things. So this imagination is very, very important, even in material world. I feel material inventions.
Now, if we will go to our Ved Puran,
Yes, sir.
it's very clearly mentioned, because why I'm saying is, one side we blame the Western and we say that they have taken and they have not acknowledged, but what we have done ourselves. Now, Veds clearly says that after the death of the husband, the wife should allowed, rather she should be requested to remarry. This is written in the Ved. While the Sati Pratha and Val this Vidva Vivah, the widows marriage was totally banned in India for many years, many years, centuries. And then we have done it recently after seeing what is happening in other countries.
Yes.
Now, one side we say we are the best, yes, and we ourselves have changed as per the need of our own selfishness, I must say, of that time, that those who were ruling, or those who were those so-called the pandits or the dharm gurus or the religious heads, that they have given the interpretation in such a way that people were forced to understand that the widow's marriage is banned. But now it has come to the knowledge that no, it was not banned, and it was written in Ved. So do you think that like we say, little knowledge is harmful? Either we should study properly, otherwise we should not stop. We should not study at all. What do you say about this, Dr. Sankaran?
Yeah, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I think half knowledge is dangerous, because then facts will parade as truth. Facts cannot parade as truth. Truth is something which is too sublime to be bandied about and spoken about. It has to be realized, and only with such people we will be able to explain what we have in mind. And that's why I love coming to, seriously, I like being in your forum, because you're not thrusting down your idea on others. But then at the end of the day, I think I gain a lot, and I think our youngsters who listen to all this, or anybody for that matter, if they're willing, they will learn a lot. So I think we need to study these things. But however much studies we do, at the end of the day, it has to make that local sense in a way. When I say local, I'm saying at the individual level, it should make sense. So when we start looking at that, we will find that I think our respect for women should be very, very high. Actually, it's indeed very, very high, because we have the goddesses, and amazing. So I personally, I don't have to talk personally about myself here, but I think I'm trying to understand these things deeply, and I find the mandalas, they have helped me achieve certain habits of the mind, habits of the body. It's enormously helped me. So I think these symbolic things, if one takes it seriously, is tremendously powerful. And I think we need it, because we need to empathize and be empathetic to human beings. So I'm completely convinced that the so-called, I call it Chaturvyuha, the four classification of people, it's by temperament. And I've been in different stages, and I've talked to some really great experts on Sri Aurobindo. They said, yeah, you may have two different, I think one is for, let's say, knowledge, the other is for perfection. That's so, so you have knowledge, power, money, or harmony, money. Probably the origin. There's something about it, transactional equality, and then perfection. So my sense is you're right, absolutely. We have to interpret it in new ways, and leave it. The last mile has to be left to the reader to interpret it according to his own station in life, that point in life, and be uncertain about that. It's okay. I mean, we don't have to be exactly, two people need not be exactly identical. So that will create a problem. That is homogenization that happens, monoculture, mono cropping, and so on. We know the problems of that.
Dr. Sankaran, when you are saying that the knowledge, how we interpret, but there were many I must say I will not say, but like I will give an example of Mahesh Yogi.
Correct.
Now he has come out with a transcendental meditation
Yes, sir.
in which he has achieved, or rather, I witnessed myself that where they start floating, although it was not that they are going up for 2 meters or 3 meters, but at least few inches they are above the earth, and when they are in the dhyan. But he was not given that importance or that recognition in our own country. And ultimately, he has to leave the country. He has to start his organization in Netherlands, where he shifted the headquarters. Don't you think that we talk about all these ancient things, about the knowledge and everything, but when we have to accept it, we are either very slow or we do not want to do it for some reasons. I can't explain because I don't know about those reasons. But when you have studied, what are the reasons why in India, we are not recognizing our own things, but because we require proof by giving something, until unless you will not show, nobody will recognize. So
Um,
you think that we have to give more recognition and do some more research, and give the proofs to everyone, including the Western world, so that they will understand why
yes.
India is having such a ancient glorified history, or the as you said, the knowledge system, Indic knowledge system.
I'm going to be unkind here to our own countrymen. And you can only be unkind. A kind heart can be unkind to people only when we see the potential. Otherwise, if it's coming from an unkind heart, it'll be too sharp. But to correct things, I believe with our students, with our children, we have to speak the truth sometimes, and sometimes it might be a little harsh. So going, if that is okay in your forum, I would say that I'll say this. I mean, with due respect to everybody, I could be wrong, but my thesis, I'm always in doubt. But when it comes to action, we should not be in doubt. But mind should be always with doubt. That is a problem again with Western pedagogy. Be so cocky that this is the right decision. No, decision making in management should be very sharp and quick. But that doesn't mean that we have no doubts. So if given that kind of a environment, I will say that Westerners are rajasic. They need action all the time. So they're extremely rajasic, I feel. I've seen it in my colleagues, I've seen it in my professors, I've seen it in my students. Action, action, action. While we talk about Satwik things, but actually we want stability all the time. And stability, I'm not saying stability is a bad thing, but stability can actually be tamas. Actually, stability is about tamasic orientation. So I'm saying that if there is something like a collective psychology, I think in India, the collective psychology is tamasic. Sorry to say this. Well, we know something, but that's at a cognitive level. That's not at an experiential level. But Westerners are rajasic. That's why we find our students going abroad, according to me, according to this theory. If this theory is complete, if anything is, if you can cross-classify this theory with other theories, which I have done, we can come out with some very, very interesting observations. So I feel that we are not, neither action-oriented nor knowledge-oriented. We just talk about it. So reflected glory actually is about stability and wanting things as it is. Sometimes it's good. I'm not saying tamasing is bad. There's no bad and good here. But we are tamasic. Culturally, we are tamasic people. That's worked for us.
Okay. Dr. Sankaran, you mentioned about Satwik and Tamasic. Now,
yes,
in lay person's knowledge,
yes,
or what they understand, Tamsi means something which is like eating non-vegetarian, eating something which excites you, which stimulates your organs, or drinking alcohol. They says these are the Tamsi Pravati, which where if you will have these, then you will become asuratmak. But if you are eating fruits and vegetables, or you are pure vegetarian, or you are taking milk, etc., you are Satwik, without so much spices, etc. Because spices also they consider it the Tamsi thing. Now, do you agree with this?
Actually, I'm not a scholar to comment on this. Actually, I don't have that scholarship. But my understanding, after speaking to some very wise people, some of my friends who are into this Vedic understanding, my current understanding of tamasic is seeking stability when stability should not be there. Like, for instance, procrastination. Similarly, kind of seeking, status quo when it should be changed. Or to say that, well, कुछ नहीं होगा, ये ऐसा ही है, इसमें कुछ फर्क नहीं होगा. Then you point out to him how Soviet Union fell, or Germany's unification, or but it will not convince them, because they say ऐसा ही होगा. They're not looking at history, even recent history. I'm saying in the Western sense of history. To me, that is tamasic. Well, Rajasic is about competition, fight for supremacy, and so on. And it's full of action. So that is Rajasic. And Satwik is about just minimal action, using great ideas, meta theories to generate action. Now, these meta theories are very, very interesting things, because it's not based on good and bad. It's based on effectiveness and having a world, actually a philosophical mind, yes, but being very practical on ground and achieving what one has set out to do. And, accepting that different people have different utility functions, if I may use the economic term, and leaving them to achieve what they want. I mean, for instance, I think a truly Satwik person, probably, this is my thesis, would tell our students, just become whatever you want. And you don't moralize to them. But realize that once you have a Ferrari, you might think that this is not that great a thing. You need to have parking space. They will come after you. There's a problem of insurance. Somebody might thieve what you have. All these are problems that people are not aware of. So that awareness we have to create. So my sense of, and this food thing, yes, I'm actually, what you said is, yeah, I'm aware of this. I would really like somebody to do research on this. And why are we saying, non-vegetarian food is tamasic? It may have something to do with Ayurveda and, nutrition.
But Dr. Sankaran, I just stop you.
Yeah.
Even Vivekanand, great saint like Vivekanand, he propagated, he said, beef eating is not bad. Rather, a real Hindu is not that who cannot eat the beef.
Yeah.
Now, one side we praise them, praise them, we say they are our knowledgeable persons. And other side, even in no Ved or Puran or anywhere, it is mentioned that you should not eat non-veg. You should not drink. You should not drink alcohol. Nowhere it is prohibited. Rather, we see they used to have all these things. Then why we are in nowadays only mentioning these things and highlighting those things which suits us? It means our knowledge system is for the time. It depends on what it suits to us. We interpret it like that, and we convey to the public at large or to the students that this is what is written, although it is not written. Do you think we require lots of research, the authentic research,
Yes.
who can come out giving all the details, or sab chalta hai wala, what you mentioned, should go like this?
No, I think what is required is, we have to uphold authenticity, according to me. We should not uphold efficiency in management, for instance. So if everybody is authentic, relatively authentic, there's no fear based on which they are reacting to situations. I think all these things will be taken care of. So one will figure out whether, a certain type of food is appropriate for oneself. I, for one, I used to smoke till 9th of May 2001. I'm being so precise just to say I remember that day. So I went for Vipassana meditation. I must have stopped 100 times before that, because I knew this was not helping me, because it clears a cough. I'll smoke more than what I could handle. More than 4 or 5 cigarettes, I used to get a headache. Still, on days when I thought I am tense in the office, I'll go and have 10 cigarettes, and next day come down with a sore throat, literally. So what I'm saying is, our whole approach should be towards getting people to know where they are, what they are. So we have to give superior experience to our youngsters. And that superior experience is not done through, trust reducing examinations and so on. I mean, it's a very difficult thing. I don't know how to do it entirely. But in small groups, you can do this, what I'm saying. So so to answer your question, yes, I think we should not impose anything on anybody. But if collectively, if 10 people say, I'm the 11th person in the group, I mean, this is what I believe. I'm not saying others should believe in it. If 10 people say that getting up early in the morning at 4 o'clock is important, and if I get up at 5 o'clock instead of 4, and it's creating a problem for that 10, I must have the graciousness to say that I'll also get up at 4. Because it's inconvenient for this.
That's true, Dr. Sankaran. But without giving a wrong quote from our ancient history or ancient books, by saying that it is prohibited to eat this, to wear this, to do this, when it is like this, it gives an impact that you want to convince somebody. If you are teaching someone good habits, doesn't mean that you will give a wrong example or quote wrong thing from our ancient books just to convey a good message. Or you think that saying a lie is good if it is beneficial for others, which we always hear कि छोटा झूठ जो होता है अच्छा होता है अगर
Actually, it's a very interesting thing you're asking. Can I just quote? And I don't normally I things don't become by heart to me, but this was so beautiful, it became by heart. Isaac Asimov, the fiction, the science fiction writer, he said once, the closer to the truth, the better the lie. The lie itself, when it is, the truth itself, when it is used, is the best lie. So truth is beyond such use, So we should not, I'm not here to quote actually, I quote only to say that my experience is corresponding with this truth. And it's a reflective process. Any good writer is actually into a reflective process of rediscovering himself. That's why it's research, according to my understanding. Okay? So what I'm saying is, it is absolutely wrong to say that somebody said this, however great that person is, from a book. And to say that so-and-so said I should not eat this food. I think it's patently wrong.
Okay. Now what changes do you think that need to be brought about for this Indic knowledge system? If we have to give this system knowledge to Indic knowledge, especially to the youth and the youngsters, what changes you think that it's required?
I think, yes, as an educator, I find giving knowledge to students should be completely avoided. Everything is available in the net. So we should tell them how to cleverly search and how to keep two aspects of a truth with each other and kind of work out what is right for them. That process of discovering truth is not emphasized in education, because the professor is very happy with pat answers because he can correct the papers right or wrong. So we should completely change all these things. How can it be done? I think we have to look at several new cases that are emerging. For instance, I think eventually, this was said by a friend of mine, I didn't initially accept it, but now I'm beginning to accept this. He's saying universities will become retail outlets for knowledge. So if I am a great guy in Indic, this can be given to 10 universities. I'm not saying me, I'm just, whoever. Somebody is really good in artificial intelligence. Why should I discover artificial intelligence again in the classroom? So universities will become retailers and they will do all this, regulatory stuff and all that will be there. Hopefully they'll allow this. So what I'm trying to say is that
Dr. Sankaran, you mentioned the university as retailer.
Might
become. So you mean to say there will be a wholesaler or a distributor or a manufacturer of the knowledge which is transmitting and which has been retailed by these universities.
That's correct.
To say like this.
That's
what this supply chain system from top to bottom.
Yes.
Now it means then why we require university?
Yeah, actually, currently the universities, according to me, exist because, frankly, with due respect to everybody, I have great respect for my colleagues, my seniors, everybody. We are not, see, all systems have a certain inertia. So it is not as fluid as, people who are seeing things. I mean, individuals can see things. So I really think we need to question, and we really have to take the best from everywhere. If a Harvard University professor Michael Porter can teach competitive strategy, why should I teach competitive strategy? I should bring him in, and I should really critique him. This great man is worthy of being critiqued. So I should be able to critique him and say, these are the problems he may have. And then leave it at that, so that students become very, very sharply focused on action when it comes to it, but not be cocky about it and say, because I learned it from the textbook, I'll do it. This is what I think practitioners are looking for.
So you mean to say the National Education Policy 2020 is also considering all these changes, or nothing? Are they going to have this type of knowledge system in India?
I think there are institutional mechanisms that's preventing a true flow of knowledge and true, what should I say, absorption of wisdom. That's why we have.
You are giving a very, very, very important. What you are saying is not. I'm not sure that people. I am sure that people will not digest this. It's a.
Yes.
You are giving a very revolutionary idea.
Yes,
you
sir.
are saying that. You are saying. I'm repeating. You mean to say that there are institutions who are hurdle, who are
Yes.
becoming a barricade in the gain of the knowledge. For that they don't want, they intentionally don't want that the knowledge should go to the students.
I'm not saying they're doing it intentionally. See, let me say something even more controversial, and I include myself in this also. A genuine thief who says I'm a thief is less dangerous to me than a person who genuinely thinks that he is doing the right thing, isn't it? And that person may be accepted by society as an honest person, but he is problematic. We've seen this in politics. We say this man is such a great guy, or this lady is a great guy, great person. But after the death of that person, we find the whole party completely gone. So this one-manship is there. All these are power-based things, actually.
So you mean to say that those who are not knowing, either they have the half knowledge, and that's why they have become a hurdle for the that the flow will go down.
Yes, I'm saying
you mean
that.
to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would just want to add one thing. I'm not seeing them as evil. I'm seeing this as misled and too comfortable with power. That's why we need youngsters. They've got the power thing into their head, and they're not able to live anything else. They are in great deal of suffering. Such people who are in positions that they can make a difference, but they say, no, this cannot be done. Aisa karna hai. Such people are in deep distress, actually. So when do we not trust people? Because, these things. So, yeah.
So you mean to say that the National Educational Policy 2020 is having lots of lacunas because either they are not having knowledge, or intentionally they do not want to take any decisions which will not be pleasing to the power, and that's why they have come out with this educational policy, which according to you is not what you think as a researcher, or as you think about the knowledge system, that it will give a smooth transfer of the knowledge to the student, which should be there, which is not there in this particular national education policy.
No, I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that. I found national education policy, especially the draft, the 484 pages. I read it, the second half, higher education, very carefully. I found it is an amazing document. Now, to me, I tell this to my colleagues and senior students. NEP to me is like a directive principle. It talks about autonomy. It talks about freeing the minds of youngsters. It says all these different things. And with the new one, with the 2020 final policy, not the draft, which is 66 pages, obviously all this cannot be brought in. So I'm asking my colleagues to use this as directive principles and do something fantastic and heroic. But unfortunately, all the people that I talk to who are in positions, I mean, I'm not saying everybody is like that. People with whom maybe 5, 10 people I have discussed or some of these conferences, all of them are saying something which is very, very inane. I'm sorry to say this. They'll say, no, we'll have a, honors course. But honors course is not enough. We have to practice autonomy. And I'm saying that Indic thinking has this 4 levels of people. I'm not saying it's higher and lower. It's circular. But some people who are in this realm of thinking cannot be enthused with power. It will attract people who are actually power oriented. So it will become true Chatrik, which is wrong. I should be willing to give up my power. I should be willing to give up my lunch for knowledge. So even when I was in practice also in companies, so when they say be practical, I ask them, if I have the freedom, not all of them, I said, tell me one real great teacher you had. You are in this position because you have an MBA or a PhD. I'm also in the same stage. So I have nothing against individuals. They say so-and-so made a difference. How did he teach you? Invariably, it's because she or he did something phenomenally different from the run-of-the-mill people. So I'll give you one example without mentioning names because there was one teacher in IIM when I went to PGDM who had every week she had a test. And I consider one of the greatest teachers I have had. And I had a professor who was teaching something which is more qualitative, who said, I don't believe in exams. I'll give you one term and paper. I got into research and sociological I've got a kind of a sociological thinking. I got it because of him, because he used to make us read Talcott, Parsons and Santayana. Now, so this variety of experience, we don't know where we will go.
So according to you, the implementation of national education policy is again a jumla.
It's a jumla.
That it is not going to be implemented, and we have just shown. So the educators, the students, and the private players, or all the stakeholders in education systems are very happy that we have a very good national education policy 2020, but it is in the book, in the form of book. It is kept. We will pray to it. Oh, this is our national education, but we are not going to implement it.
I don't know whether
we will not be. It is not going to be implemented.
Yes, they don't know it actually because they are interpreting 3 + 2 + 4, and they are talking about very quantitative things, honors and exit and all that. But all this, the spirit is lost.
Okay, now I am coming to our topic, which is about the Indic thing.
Yes, sir.
You are saying about the knowledge system.
Yes,
but
sir.
Why only Indic in nature? Knowledge is whether it is Indic or anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Why you take it only that we will concentrate only Indic?
Before I answer, I'll tell you, your questions are fantastic. It's very, very probing, and I'm not just mukhastudi nahi hai. It makes you think, but I've thought through many of these things. That's why I say it's about indigenous knowledge. It is not about Indic knowledge. But first, I should know what is Indic, because I genuinely think that India is unique in having recorded these things. And despite so much of conquest in this country, despite burning down of books, and I'm not saying with anger, I'm saying it as a fact, it still remained. Because you can take this idol and hide it and say, now you can destroy it and put fire on this place. But the real stuff is in this Vigraha. It's not Jada. It's not even Bimba, if I understand these words correctly. So what I'm saying is, here is a civilization which withstood all kinds of onslaughts, precisely because there were some people, our ancestors, I'm saying ancestors for whole of humanity, wrote these things down and recorded it and kept the purity of that language. And they said there should be 2 kinds of languages. One is the pure language, then you can have a spoken language. So what I'm trying to say is that there should be some people who really are seeking knowledge for knowledge's sake. When we say this in India, they will say, how will you be practical? But there should be some section of people who are willing to give up a lunch for reading a book. It could be Adam Smith's, I'm saying as a business professor, I'm saying Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, or it could be Karl Marx, Das Kapital, whatever. So long as it's not scatology and it's not titillating me at a bodily level, all books are accepted. Do we have libraries that believe in this? They say put 5 copies, 100 copies of so and so book. It's very problematic because we think that our engineers will be best trained by reading that book and knowing it. In fact, that's a problem. Opening the mind is our job, and that happens through a serendipitous process. It's a beautiful word. We don't know what will open the mind of the students. I'll give you one example, sir. I had a student coming and telling me, I'm not good in communication. So I said, what's your mother tongue? He told me his mother tongue, which is not obviously English. None of our mother tongue is English anyway. So I said, what is your basic education? He said, he gave me the language. I said, tell me one author. I don't know many people. I know authors in this area, but I don't read that language. And he told me. I called the librarian. This was, so I said, do we have, he says, we don't have that language. I said, find out some books and this guy is going to come to you. Please help him. And I can tell you after 2 years, when he took the degree, I'm so proud to say this. He was communicating well. I don't know where he is now, but he got a damn good job. He had, stopped being ashamed of his own language. So to me, a language is so much more important than simply what I speak just like that. It's my experience. And I should be able to explain this. I have one very related thing. I said this in Delhi when I was teaching in Delhi. So one Tamil boy said, sir, I got an interesting example. I said, okay, go ahead. He said, my grandmother from Tamil Nadu comes and neighbor is Punjabi. They talk to each other whole day. They don't know. One person doesn't know Tamil. The other person only knows Tamil. The other person knows only Punjabi. What are they doing? So this whole, the materialist world has told us about, if you're going to Japan, if you're going to Arabic world, you have to do these things. I think that's all not required. We just have to look at the variety and observe things. Wow, look at this. What I give importance here is not important there. So that sense of observation is more important. That's communication. And empathizing with people and their environment is the best thing that we can do. I think I've digressed a little bit.
Dr. Sankaran, you have given two names, Adam Smith and Karl Marx.
Correct.
Why no new names from India you have given?
That's because I'll give an example of why we are stuck up these things. I'm not an expert on China, but I have read Confucius and Mencius. I consider Mencius' writing even more sublime and fantastic. Now, I don't know. I mean, this is worth researching on. I think the moment we talk about Chinese are not doing good things to us. We all know it. Okay, there's a lot of anger, and rightly so. I feel they have taken the worst of the West, the worst of communism, the worst of capitalism taken, and then we say this is Confucian thinking. I don't understand. I try to understand why they are saying it's Confucius thinking. It's so much more subtle. This is such gross behavior they are displaying at a political level. I'm sure it's not. I've taught Chinese in Hong Kong. So what I'm trying to say is it's so much more subtle. The world belongs to a subtle plane which is forgotten when we are materialistic. So so I'm saying Karl Marx and these guys, these are extremes. Unless we know extremes, we will not be able to figure out the gray at which one should be.
That's true, but why we see whenever we talk about our ancient time, we quote Ramayana, Mahabharata, Ved or Chanakya. Why we are not giving the thinkers of present time, like Adam Smith is not from ancient time.
No,
Similarly,
yes.
When we mention about China, yes, we say the enemy country, blah blah blah. But we have to respect they are number one right now. And you see the progress in late 80s till 80s, they were called the opium country. People were with the opium and they were down. And today they are number one. They crossed even the USA as far as the GDP and all those things are concerned.
Buying parity,
So my point is, don't you think that we have only one problem, that we always consider ours as a superior, but we do not want to cultivate or inculcate those superior qualities among ourselves. Rather, we just see the negative parts of the others. We are not, as initially you mentioned, that we have to do our thing so that it will go. And so do you think that by this, your Indic knowledge system
Yes.
we can talk about ourselves, and when we'll talk about
Yes.
ourselves, our own knowledge will go, and then only we can say that we are wish guru.
You are absolutely right. Absolutely. Unless we have confidence in ourselves, we'll never be able to do anything, even do good for ourselves. And we have it, not as Indic knowledge, but as, wisdom knowledge. Let's call it wisdom knowledge. But initially, to just get by and, make sure that we have the right keywords and so on, you may have to use Indic. And even indigenous knowledge is wrong. We should call it wisdom knowledge. If there is and wisdom and knowledge traditionally are antithetical. I mean, they're different. Wisdom is, so we have to call it something else now.
Okay. Now, Dr. Sankaran, as we have started at that time also, we mentioned about the research. How many researches are going on or already taken on this knowledge system, whether it is Indic or in a wisdom knowledge system, whatsoever word you say? Are we serious? Are we doing the research on this, or no such type of researches which are going on in this particular field?
There is really no great research going on in this field in India. Elsewhere is there, but some of them is really misled also. This is what Rajiv Malhotra talks about, Indology. He is not at all bullish about them, many of them. But I have found a few key people lately in India as well as outside who are able to appreciate some of these things. And India is a very complex country. I'm sure there are some amazing scholars with Gurukula system and so on. So we need to create channels of communication with them. And, there has been a lot of discussion. There's quite a bit of new writing. One professor from IIM Bangalore, for instance, wrote about social capital, caste as social capital. Now he's saying that there's nothing wrong with caste. So long as I'm not stepping into others' boundary, what's wrong with you? I mean, I can help my brother. I consider him a brother. Don't break that bond. So if you look at social capital, I did some research on social capital. I did a fairly, quite a bit of work. I don't want to talk about that right now. But there are two kinds of, one is bonding social capital, one is bridging social capital. Now, bonding social capital is strong in India. But through all these divisive thinking, we are trying to break that. But bridging social capital, which is about, between groups of people, we're not trying to enhance it. But lately, probably there are some things, if you look at for good things, like FPO, farmer producer organizations. So that's some effort at, some kind of effort at ground level to bring people together. So my feeling is that we can bring all these things together, not through simply, knowing things, but getting people to come together. And politics should be defined as, according to me, politics should be for generating collective groups with wisdom, not for wrong things. So it's a very difficult thing. So according to me, NGOs should come up so that people, for genuinely their rights, they will argue. And there should also be a corresponding person who says, when you argue for this, somebody else is being affected. So have you thought about it? So, I mean, that kind of thinking where the people in positions of power can go up in terms of their thinking and so on, and leave it more to, youngsters and so on, is what I think is possible. So even evaluation should be class. I'm saying in exams and so on, internal evaluation can be peer evaluation. And I believe there are some such senses there in Vedic thinking. You create questions, you create debate between students, they themselves will come up with these things. Now it is too top down. See, the entire world is full of power based on division. This is the problem. Whether it is subject object in research, or whether it is good or evil when it comes to emotions, or when it comes to actions, action versus doers versus seers. So this dialectic, Hegelian dialectic, has been completely hijacked. So I asked some of my friends who have communist inclination, what do you mean by materialistic, what is it? Dialectic materialism? I'm not able to see that actually. Because if I lose this, that person gets it. So material is, you can't share material as you share love or goodness and hatred also, I mean, for that matter. So I don't know whether I'm answering your question, but
no, my question is about the anyways, you have given the answer, but now I'm coming to the Last
Yes, sir.
question to you.
Yeah,
What
sure.
are your future plans? Because
Hmm.
you said that very few research is taking place,
Yeah.
almost negligible, and it's a vast thing, very, very vast
Yes.
knowledge. You
Yes.
require lots of hours,
Yes.
others
Yes.
say years to work on this. So,
Yeah.
what are your future plans?
Yeah. There is one very, very interesting book. As a teacher, I'm saying this, and that's what I'm quintessentially a thought keeper. So there's a famous, it's a very famous book in the US. It's called The Courage to Teach. It's by a person called either, I'm trying to figure out, Palmer Parker or Parker Palmer. Both these names will appear. I think it's Parker Palmer. What he's saying, courage to teach. What he's saying is essentially, in one sentence, if I could say that, which I think he would agree, is the courage to teach is about discovering yourself. And I find this phenomenally important. So I'm trying to figure out myself actually. And in trying to figure out myself and my tradition, I mean, I have just behind me my fifth generation grand uncles, uncle as well as grandfather from mother's side and father. Pictures are there. They've preserved it. So I'm saying that we have to discover. And I'm also equally, bullish about Lucy, the first person who went from 4 legs to 2 legs, our great great grandmother, okay, Lucy in Africa, who said, I'm sure when she went, that's what we have, man or woman, I don't know. When that person went on 2 legs, everybody must have told, Arey, why are you going on 4 legs? It's such an unsteady thing. But it freed the hands. It made you see further, just despite the big, smallness of the body, if I may, compared to large animals. So my point is this. So I'm a student of, I want to discover myself. I'm a selfish in that.
Okay. Okay.
And if I discover myself, it will benefit my students. That's my creed. That's my article of faith.
Today's program, I'm sure our viewers, you are quite enlightened, because what Dr. Sankaran has mentioned is very clear. If you discover yourself, then it will be enlightened. And once you are enlightened yourself, you can enlighten the society at large. I'm sure now, after this program and many others programs, people may come to know more about the Indic knowledge system. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Sankaran,
you,
and
sir.
thank you,
Thank you.
all the
Thank you.
viewers, for watching.